Well, we continue with the analysis of Act 4, Scene 1, which is a little bit long, so that's why I have split the videos. How shall thou hope for mercy rendering none? Yeah, so how shall you hope that we may be merciful to you if you are not merciful to us? So that's the last bit that we analyzed, and we will continue listening as from there, and then we will continue analyzing this extract. What is important about the rest of the scene, especially, is the moment in which Portia enters the scene disguised as Balthasar. And remember that this is the second instance of cross-dressing in The Merchant of Venice. Yes? So let us listen to this bit, and then we will skip up to that part. Allow me to share my screen with you.
How shalt thou hope for mercy, rendering none?
What judgment shall I dread, doing no wrong?
You have among you many a purchased slave, which, like your asses and your dogs and mules, you use in abject and in slavish parts, because you bought them. Shall I say to you, let them be free, marry them to your heirs? Why sweat they under burdens? Let their beds be made as soft as yours, and let their palates be seasoned with such viands. You will answer, the slaves are ours. So do I answer you. The pound of flesh, which I demand of him, is dearly bought. 'Tis mine, and I will have it. If you deny me, fie upon your law. There is no force in the decrees of Venice. I stand for judgment. Answer, shall I have it?
Okay, so up to here. So this is the reply. This is Shylock's reply. He says, what judgment shall I dread doing no wrong? He has a point, yes. Why does he need to be afraid of not deserving just mercy if he doesn't need mercy? Yes. Shall I expect? This is what he says. What judgment shall I dread doing no wrong? Why should I be afraid of my future if I have done nothing wrong? Yes. And then he gives an example, yes, saying that many of the Christians there have slaves. Yes, of course, he's not going to talk against slavery. What he's saying is that many of Christians and many Venetians, yes, bought slaves. Yes, and if you had a slave that you have bought with your own money, would you let him free? This is what he says. And of course, it's a rhetorical question because we know the answer. They would never let free someone that they have bought with their own money. So he's drawing a parallelism between buying a slave and buying his pound of flesh. Yes, he says, if you go to line 99, he says, the pound of flesh which I demand of him is dearly bought. Yeah, so I have bought his pound of flesh. It is mine, and I will have it. So he's very stubborn. All the rest of the characters may think that he's pretending, that he's pushing the situation until the very edge of it. But to me, it sounds like he's not playing, like he really means that he wants a pound of flesh. Yes, there is no force in the decrees of Venice. I stand for judgment. Answer, shall I have it? So there is no force in the decrees of Venice. He means that there is no force in the law to stop this from happening. Yes, your laws have no validity. In fact, there is a line that I skipped that he says, if you deny me, fie upon your law. So if you deny me this, if you don't fulfill the law here, yes, then your own law is useless. Yes. And he's very confident. He's very confident with this situation because he he has a right over Antonio. He knows that all the law is on his side. Yes. And as we have discussed before, if they dismiss, if they don't take into account the law for this case, then Venice would lose its reputation. Okay. So this is a hopeless moment for everyone here because Shylock apparently is about to win. In fact, if you skip a couple of lines and you go to line 121, he says, why do you whet thy knife so earnestly? So why are you sharpening your knife so eagerly? So imagine this picture. Yeah, so we have Shylock, we have Antonio, all the Christians there, all the friends surrounding them. Yes, the Duke, Nerissa, who has just come in, and suddenly, yes, Shylock grabs a knife and he starts sharpening it, you know, in a very serious and also mocking gesture, showing them that he really means what he's about to do, yes, and enjoying the situation, okay? So he's asked, Bassanio is asking him, why do you sharpen your knife? Yes, and Shylock answers very to the point. Yes, he has nothing to hide. Remember that this is the contract that Antonio himself has signed. Of course, in a mere formality, he never expected that it would come to this, but he signed a contract, knowing what that contract said. Yes, they never thought that Shylock would take this so seriously because they didn't know how much Shylock hated Antonio. Okay, so Shylock replies to cut the forfeiture from that bankrupt there. So to cut, yes, the piece of flesh, yes, the payment from the person who couldn't pay me back. Yes. So of course, everyone gets really mad at this situation. And Nerissa has come in to present a letter saying that there is a lawyer coming with his clerk. His name is Balthazar, and we all know that this is Portia, yes, disguised as Balthazar. Why is she disguised as a man? Well, because of the Elizabethan Convention. We know that women couldn't work during this this age. They were not allowed to work, especially women who belong to a high class like Portia. Yes. So we're going to skip, yes, this section. There is a letter that they read that it presents Balthazar as a good lawyer that is going to be defending. It's a doctor from Rome that is acquainted with the cause of the trouble here with the trial and the bond, yes, and of course asking not to let his lack of years, because Balthazar is very young. Yes, it says if you go to line 158 towards the middle, it says, I beseech you, let his lack of years be no impediment to let him lack a reverent estimation. So let not his lack of experience be an excuse for you not to estimate this man, because he's a really good lawyer. And that's the moment that Portia enters, of course, disguised as Balthazar. And this is the moment in which dramatic irony starts working, because we are all aware that this is Portia, but the rest of the characters have no idea that this is happening. Okay? So we are going to listen to this, okay? Let me find the right spot. I wanted to actually show you the let me show you. I have to open. I will show you this scene. It's a very short. It's a very short extract from this scene. If I find it. It's actually known as the trial scene, and this is Portia, yes, delivering a beautiful speech in which she begs in a very polite and smart way. She asks Shylock to be merciful. Of course, notice how the theme of mercy continues to be repeated throughout the story, okay? This is line 100 and 178. No, 79. 179. Yes. The quality of mercy. Well, we can go a couple of lines before. Yes. Portia addresses Antonio. She says, this is a little bit above that. Do you confess the bond? Do you acknowledge that you have signed this contract? I do, Antonio replies, and Portia says, then must the Jew be merciful. So the only solution is for Shylock to be merciful, okay? And he replies, Shylock replies, on what compulsion must I tell me that? So why should I do that? Yes, what law forces me to be merciful? Okay, so now let me share with you this scene in which Portia delivers this beautiful speech. The quality of mercy is not strained. So I want you to listen to it as we, before we analyze it, okay? Give me a second that I share my screen with you. Let's see. Here we are. Here we go.
Are you acquainted with the difference that holds this present question in the court?
I am informed throughly of the cause. Which is the merchant here and which the Jew?
Antonio and old Shylock both stand forth.
Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow, yet in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you as you do proceed.
Okay, we are about to start. This is just a little bit above these lines, okay?
You stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth, as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His sceptre shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which if thou follow, this strict court of Venice must needs give sentence against the merchant there.
My deeds upon my head. I crave the law, the penalty and forfeit of my bond.
Is he not able?
Okay, 1 second here, before we continue watching this extract from this scene. Let's go back to this beautiful speech. Yes, when Shylock asks, "Why should I be merciful?" I don't know if you notice, Portia as Balthazar, her face changed to a face of I mean, how obvious can that answer be? She says the quality of mercy is not strain. What she means is the identity, the essence of mercy is that it comes naturally. You don't need to feel a compulsion to do it. We should naturally be merciful because it can, at any time in our lives, we may need someone to be merciful to us. Yes. It droppeth, it says, it falls down as the gentle rain from heaven. Notice this is a simile because it is an explicit comparison. Yes, it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blessed him that gives and him that takes. So this is the classical quotation from the Bible. Mejor es dar que recibir. Yes, so it is more blessed those who give than those who receive. Yes. Then she goes on. Yes, she says that the quality of mercy looks better in a king than his own crown. Yes, so being merciful is an amazing quality, a beautiful quality that even kings have, and that they give that mercy, being merciful, it's what makes a king look good, even when he has his crown, which is the main element that makes a king, right? She also says that mercy is above everyone and everything. Yes, it says, this is line 190 and 89. It says, but mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. An earthly power does then show like God's when mercy seasons justice. So it is as being merciful is something that God does. So we should also do it. Yes, we do pray for mercy. Therefore do, though justice be thy plea, even when you are right, when it is just what you are asking for, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. That if it were up to justice, no one would be saved. Yes, because before God, we are all guilty. This is what she's implying here, that only mercy can save us. Only mercy is what moves God to forgive us. Yes, so if it were up to justice, if we were all measured in the same way that Shylock measures everyone, then no one would be just. Yes, no one would see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer does teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. So we pray, we beg for mercy, and when we beg for mercy, we understand that we also have to give it to others. Yes, I have spoken as much, then she says, I have spoken too much to mitigate the justice of your plea, which if you follow, the strict court of Venice must give a sentence against the merchant there. So if you want to insist on what you are saying, then according to the law, you must take his bond, his pound of flesh. Yes. And what is Shylock's reply? My deeds upon my head, I crave the law, the penalty and forfeit of my bond. Yes. So my deeds upon my head, I take full responsibility for my actions. Yes. I crave the law. What I want is the law to be fulfilled. The penalty and forfeit of my bond. So he's obsessed. He's totally obsessed with getting his payment as he requested it. Yes, he doesn't care about the money. He only wants the pound of flesh because what he wants is revenge. yes, and not money. And well, Portia asks, is he not able to discharge the money? Can't he pay back? So what Portia is asking is natural. Why doesn't he pay? If he has the money now, why doesn't he return the money? Yes. And Bassanio, and she asks this question knowing that Bassanio has the money that she has given to him herself. Yes. So Bassanio says, yes, here I tender it for him in the court. Yes, twice the sum, if that will not suffice. I will be bound to pay it 10 times over on forfeit of my hands, my head, my heart. If this will not suffice, it must appear the malice bears down truth. And I beseech you, rest once the law to your authority, to do a great right, do a little wrong, and curb this cruel devil on his will. So here what he's doing is offering, yes, to pay a lot more money than what the contract actually said, if it was actually paid on time, yes. And if it wouldn't suffice, if it wouldn't be enough, he says, it must appear that malice bears down truth. So it appears that the only thing that this man wants, that Shylock wants, is to be evil. He says, I would be bound to pay in 10 times over on forfeit of my hands, my head, my heart. So he's willing to pay with his own body. If this will not suffice, it must appear that malice bears down truth. And I beseech you, he's talking to the Duke now, I beg you, rest once the law to your authority, to do a great right, do a little wrong. So he's asking the Duke not to pay attention to the law this time, because so that's what he means when he says to do a great right, do a little wrong. Yes. But of course, the Duke cannot do that because that would spoil that would ruin the reputation of Venice. Yes. Okay, so I want to show you the complete scene. We're going to watch it again because now that you have listened to the explanation, it's interesting that you watch the whole scene again. Okay, so allow me to share again this with you.
Are you acquainted with the difference that holds this present question in the court?
I am informed throughly of the cause. Which is the merchant here and which the Jew?
Antonio and old Shylock both stand forth.
Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow, yet in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you as you do proceed. You stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth, as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His sceptre shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which if thou follow, this strict court of Venice must needs give sentence against the merchant there.
My deeds upon my head. I crave the law, the penalty and forfeit of my bond.
Is he not able to discharge the money?
Yes, here, I tender it for him in the court, yea, twice the sum.
bound to pay it 10 times over on forfeit of my hands.
Okay, up to here, very dramatic scene. Okay, very dramatic scene, especially, I don't know if you were able, I don't know if you were able to notice, oops, wait.
For Midas, I will not have been, nor not have been. Thou pay
Give me a second because things started working on its own. Okay. So as I was saying, I don't know if you noticed Bassanio's reaction, Portia's reaction when he sees how emotional Bassanio is with all of this, how he throws all the money that doesn't belong to him. Well, it does, but still, and how willing he is to give his life, even when he has recently got married. But well, of course, there is also a lot of dramatic irony at work, and we will see that Portia will discover that Bassanio and Antonio have a very strong relationship. Yes. So let us continue listening a little bit more of what happens here. Let me find the right spot.
Your messenger came, in loving visitation, was there to publish his...
So he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
On what
To render the deed cannot be. Why this bond is forfeit, and lawfully
in the tongue of man to alter me, I stay here upon my bond.
Most heartily I do beseech the court to give the judgment.
Why then thus it is. You must prepare your bosom for his knight.
Okay.
This bond is forfeit, and lawfully by this the Jew
Is.
Shylock, there's thrice thy money offered thee.
Okay, so one more second.
Into the state it cannot be.
Oh, Daniel, come to judgment.
Here. So this is, we skipped some lines. This is line 214. It must not be, there is no power in Venice. Portia knows very well the law. Yes, even when she's a woman, but she's a very well-educated woman because she is rich. So she knows the law, and she says it must not be, that cannot happen. It cannot happen that the Duke can simply change the law for one exception. Yes, it must not be, there is no power in Venice can alter a decree established. It will be recorded for a precedent, and many an error by the sample example will rush into the state. It cannot be. So the law must be upheld. Yes. And of course, Shylock celebrates. She says, "A Daniel, come to my judgment." Yes, a Daniel, a wise young judge, how I do honor thee. Yes, he mentions that Daniel was he was a character from the Bible. He was a Jewish prophet known for revealing the truth, yes, and promoting justice, among other things. Yes, so he calls Balthasar a Daniel. Yes. So let us continue listening as from there.
Yea, a Daniel, O wise young judge, how I do honor thee.
I pray you, let me look upon the bond.
Here 'tis, most reverend doctor, here it is.
Shylock, there's thrice thy money offered thee.
An oath. An oath. I have an oath in heaven. Shall I lay perjury upon my soul? No, not for Venice.
Why this bond is forfeit, and lawfully by this the Jew may claim a pound of flesh, to be by him cut off nearest the merchant's heart. Be merciful, take thrice thy money, bid me tear the bond.
When it is paid according to the tenor. It doth appear you are a worthy judge. You know the law. Your exposition hath been most sound. I charge you, by the law, whereof you are a well-deserving pillar, proceed to judgment. By my soul I swear there is no power in the tongue of man to alter me. I stay here upon my bond.
Most heartily I do beseech the court to give the judgment.
Why then thus it is. You must prepare your bosom for his knife.
Oh, noble judge, oh, excellent young man.
Okay, so let's see what is happening here. This is a very dramatic moment. Yes, imagine there Shylock holding his knife. Yes, the whole situation is very dramatic, and as I said in the previous video, one of the most dramatic scenes that Shakespeare has ever written. And we are in that moment in the comedy that it is about to turn into a tragedy. Okay, so Portia says, I pray you let me look upon the bond. So what Portia is asking as Balthasar is to see the contract. Yes, so she wants to read it. Here it is, most reverend doctor, here it is. Of course, Shylock is very happy with how the situation is going for him. So he praises the doctor, okay? He gives him the contract. Well, this is what she comes up with when she reads the bond. She says, sorry, before that, he says, here it is, most reverend doctor, here it is. Shylock, there's thrice thy money offered thee. It's interesting that he calls him by his name now, because up to now, he has been the Jew. But now she's shocked because she sees that he's being offered 3 times the money that the money that he gave to them. Yes, so she's struggling to understand how for this man it's more important to have his pound of flesh than 3 times the money. Yes, there's thrice the money offered thee, and Shylock goes on saying, an oath, I have an oath in heaven, I have made a promise in heaven. Shall I lay up perjury upon my soul? No, not for Venice. So I have signed a contract. This is what the contract says, and this is what I want. Yes. Why this bond is forfeit unlawfully? This is the explanation of the contract. The bond, yes, has already passed its deadline. Unlawfully by this, the Jew may claim a pound of flesh. So it is totally legal for the Jew to claim a pound of flesh, to be by him cut off nearest the merchant's heart. So he has to cut it at the closest place to his heart. Be merciful, take thrice thy money, bid me tear the bond. Yes, so she's giving him a way out. She's telling him constantly, be merciful, have compassion for this man. Yes, take the money. That's already punishment enough. Yes, and it's interesting because she's always giving him a way out of this situation, because there will come a moment that there will be no way out. Okay. Of course, Shylock says when it is paid, he continues to praise Balthasar. When it is paid, according to the tenor, it does appear you are a worthy judge. You know the law, your exposition has been most sound. I charge you by the law whereof you are well-deserving pillar. So you have shown that you are a good lawyer. You know what the law says, yes. I charge you by the law whereof you are all well-deserving pillar. Proceed to judgment. So tell me what your decision is. Yes, we don't have anything else to discuss, to argue about. I stay here on my bond. I insist that I want what my contract says. Yes, and he says, by my soul, I swear there is no power in the tongue of man to alter me. Wow. Yes, so there is no power in any kind of human being in the world that possesses a tongue that could say anything that would change his mind. Yes. And of course, Antonio is already tired of the whole situation. I think he's tired from the very beginning of the play, if you ask me, because he always has this very sad mood around him, and he's a very passive character. Yes, and it's very easy for him to play the role of the victim. It's very easy for him to do that. Yes, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that he's very passive about the whole situation. He's very willing to die. Yes, and throughout the whole play, his behavior has been consistent with that. Yes, he's never someone who is actually doing things. Yes. So he wants the judgment to be delivered, to be done, so that they stop arguing. And Portia says, well then, thus it is, you must prepare your bosom for his time. So she comes up with, and I think that Portia is a little bit playing with the situation as well when she says this. Yes, please, you have to prepare your shirt, yes, unbutton your shirt so that he can prepare your skin for his knife. This is what she says. Oh, noble judge, oh, excellent young man. Yes, this is, notice the use of repetition. Yes, because then we will have an echo for this. Okay. We continue listening a little bit more. Yes.
For the intent and purpose of the law hath full relation penalty, which here appeareth due upon the bond.
'Tis very true, O wise and upright judge, how much more elder art thou than thy looks.
Therefore lay bare your bosom.
Aye, his breast, so says the bond, doth it not, noble judge? Nearest his heart, those are the very words.
It is so. Are there balance here to weigh the flesh?
I have them ready.
Have by some surgeon, Shylock, on your charge, to stop his wounds lest he do bleed to death.
Is it so nominated in the bond?
It is not so expressed, but what of that? 'Twere good you do so much for charity.
I cannot find it. 'Tis not in the bond.
You, merchant, have you anything to say?
Okay, up to here. So here, again, Portia is very smart, very smart. Yes, she says, she gets everything ready. She says, okay, you don't want to show any kind of compassion. You don't want to show any mercy. She has given him the opportunity. And you will see, because I think she has already found a loophole in the law. Yes, you know, a loophole is like un vacío legal. Yes, that's a loophole. She has found already that. So she's going to take Shylock to the very edge. Yes, until she shows him that. Yes. So for the intent and purpose of the law had full relation to the penalty which here appeared due upon the bond. Yes. So getting so that the law is being upheld. Yes. This is what the law authorizes. Shylock, of course, says it is very true. Oh, wise and upright judge, how much elder you are than you look. Of course, yes, she looks very young. She is very young. Yes, therefore, lay bare your bosom. So Antonio, you know, opens his shirt very dramatically, because it is a very dramatic scene, and you may laugh, but no one is laughing on stage right now. Yes, in fact, everyone is really afraid. Yes. Therefore, lay bare your bosom, aye, his breast. So Shylock clarifies, because he's reading the contract as everything happens. Yes, he says, aye, his breast. So says the bond. Does it not, noble judge? Nearest his heart. Those are the very words. Okay, it is so. Are there balance here to weigh the flesh? So this is the first question that Portia asks, that has to do with the loophole. Yes, is there any balance, any scale? Yes, because it says a pound of flesh. Yes, so he has to cut 1 pound of flesh. Yes, and then he says, I have them ready. Yes, Shylock has the balance ready. So I don't know. I don't think he was bragging about this. I think he meant to cut his flesh, because he had the balance, he had everything ready. Yes. And Portia adds, have by some surgeon, Shylock, on your charge to stop his wounds, lest he do bleed to death. So here, Portia is assuming that Shylock brought a kind of any kind of doctor to stop the bleeding, yes, so that he wouldn't bleed to death. We know that cutting his flesh would, at this, especially during Elizabethan times, this would probably end with the death of Antonio. That's why Portia wants to make sure that there is a doctor nearby or something similar, because we know that medicine itself didn't exist in Elizabethan times, and there were no doctors per se, yes. Have by some surgeon, yes, Shylock on your charge to stop his wounds. And what is Shylock's reaction? He says, it is so nominated, is it so nominated in the room, in the bond, sorry? Does it say so in the bond? Of course, he's always focusing on what the law says, on what the contract says, and the contract says nothing about a doctor, yes, and he wants him dead, yes, he wants revenge. I cannot find, Portia replies, it is not so expressed, but what of that? It were good you do so much for charity, so it is not expressed in the contract, but it's the least you can do, yes. And Portia and Shylock replies, I cannot find it, it is not in the bond. Of course, if it, he's focused, he is obsessed with what the bond says, yes, what the law says, yes. And maybe we can think here of a binary opposition between law and being merciful. We have to try to craft the binary opposition. Law versus mercy, maybe, yes, because he just wants to follow the law, yes. So Portia, yes, addresses Antonio, and she says, you merchant, have you anything to say? As in his last words, yes, and of course he will deliver a very sad speech. This is the ultimate sacrifice, yes, he's sacrificing himself, yes, because in a way Shylock is mad at all Christians because of the way that he has been treated, and Antonio is going to pay the price for this, yes. He says, but little I am armed and well prepared, yes. I have just a few words, yes, and I am ready to face this, yes. Give me your hand, Bassanio, of course. And imagine this in front of Portia. Give me your hand, Bassanio, fare you well. Grieve not that I am fallen to this for you. So don't be sad that I have to, that I will have to pay for this punishment because of you, yes. Then if we skip a couple of lines and you go to line 269, it says, commend me to your honorable wife, tell her the process of Antonio's end. So greet your honorable wife for me, tell her how my story ended, say how I loved you, speak me fair in death, yes, speak well of me when I'm not here. And when the tale is told, bid her be judge whether Bassanio had not once a love. Yes, so when you tell her the story, tell her that you care about, that I care about you so much that I died for the bond, for the contract, for the money that I took for you. He's not saying this in a bad way, no. This is a very emotional goodbye between two very, very close friends, yes. And then he says, repent but you that you shall lose your friend, and he repents not that he pays your debt. So maybe you will be sad because you will have lost a friend, because I will die, yes, but I will not regret doing this for you, yes. I don't regret giving you the money so that you could do this, okay. So he's trying to make Bassanio not feel so bad, and all this time holding his hand dearly, yes. And of course dramatic irony at work constantly, okay. So now we're going to continue listening, and we will see that little by little, Portia will reveal this loophole. Remember that the loophole is this vacío legal. In Spanish, it's a mistake in an agreement or a law that gives someone the chance to avoid having to do something. It's an error in the way of law that makes it possible for people to legally avoid obeying the law. It is a flaw in the system. Yes, it's an instance of ambiguity in the system. Okay, so let's just continue listening a bit more. Let me skip some lines.
And when the tale is told, bid her be judge whether Bassanio had not once a love. Repent but you, that you shall lose your friend, and he repents not that he pays your debt. For if the Jew do cut but deep enough, I'll pay it instantly, with all my heart.
Antonio, I am married.
So this is after Antonio's speech. This is line 278. Okay, Antonio, I am married to a wife.
Married to a wife which is as dear to me as life itself. But life itself, my wife and all the world are not with me esteemed above thy life. I would lose all, I sacrifice them all here to this devil, to deliver you.
Your wife would give you little thanks for that if she were by to hear you make the offer.
Okay, so look at the irony of this, right? So he says, Bassanio says, Antonio, I am married to a wife which is as dear to me as life itself. But life itself, my life, and all the world are not with me esteemed above your life. So I will give up everything so that you wouldn't die. Yes, so imagine Portia's reaction to this. I would lose all. I sacrifice them all here to this devil, to Shylock, to deliver you, to set you free. And what is Portia's reply, who is, remember Balthasar in this part? Your wife would give you little thanks for that if she were by to hear make the offer. Yes, so your wife wouldn't appreciate your offer. Okay, so terrible. Look how dramatic irony is working here, with all the audience, ourselves being aware of the position in which Bassanio is placing himself. Yes, that maybe he chose the right casket, but I don't know. He was actually in love with Portia. Okay, let's continue listening a little bit more.
I have a wife whom I protest I love. I would she were in heaven, so she could entreat some power to change this currish Jew.
'Tis well you are fetched behind her back, for which would else make an unquiet house.
These be the Christian husbands. I have a daughter. Would any of the stock of Barabbas had been her husband rather than a Christian? We trifle time, I pray thee pursue sentence.
A pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law doth give it.
Most rightful judge.
Okay, so because now she's going to start talking about the pound of flesh, but let us round up this topic, yes. Graciano, who is also married to Nerissa, says, I have a wife who I protest I love. I would she were in heaven so she could entreat some power to change this currish Jew. So Graciano says the same, yes. I also have a wife who I say I love, but I wish she were dead in heaven if that would mean that Antonio would be free. So everyone wants Antonio to be free, and it's very clear that they love him even above their wives, yes? And if I know that it sounds weird, but what if you think about this from the point of view of the hierarchy of beings? of the natural order of things. Men were above women in this society, so why not? Yes. It's food for thought. Yes, we can all think about it and give our own opinion of this matter. Okay. And Nerissa, who is the assistant of Balthasar, also disguised as a man, says, "It is well you offer it behind her back." Yes, the wish would make else an unquiet house. So if you were to offer that in front of her, then the house wouldn't be so silent. Yes, because you would be arguing all the time. Yes. So then Portia goes to, this is line 295. They shift the topic to the contract. He has already, Antonio has already said his last words, and Shylock is ready to cut his flesh. Yes, a pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law does give it. So she's saying, this is what is fair. You may cut his flesh. Most rightful judge. This is what Antonio says, right? Let us continue. Antonio, sorry, Shylock. This is what Shylock says. Let us continue listening a bit more.
And you must cut this flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and the court awards it.
Judge, a sentence, come prepare.
Tarry a little. There is something else. This bond doth give thee here no jot of blood. The words expressly are a pound of flesh. Take then thy bond, take thou thy pound of flesh, but in the cutting it, if thou dost shed one drop of Christian blood, thy lands and goods are by the laws of Venice confiscate unto the state of Venice.
O upright judge! Mark, Jew, O learned judge!
Is that the law?
Okay, up to here. So, and you must cut his flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and the court awards it. Most land judge, a sentence come prepared. Notice how he keeps flattering, yes, Balthasar, yes, and getting ready to cut Antonio's flesh. So right there, when he is about to pierce Antonio's flesh, yes, Portia says, tarry a little, wait a little bit. There is something else. This bond, and this is when she describes the loophole. This is very important. This bond does give here no jot of blood. So the contract that you have written doesn't mention anything about blood. The words expressly are a pound of flesh. Take then thy bond, take your price, the pound of flesh, take thou your pound of flesh, but in the cutting it, but when you are cutting it, yes, if you do shed one drop of Christian blood, your lands and goods are by the laws of Venice confiscated upon the state of Venice. So in the contract, it doesn't say anything about blood. So if you cut his flesh, when you cut it, no drop of blood can be shed. And if there is one drop of Christian blood, yes, coming out of that body, then your goods, your lands, everything that you own will now belong to the state of Venice. So this is the loophole that she has found, that there is no mention of blood, of blood being spilled out of his body. Yes. So here, there was a note I wanted to read. In fact, here it says Portia must have known all along about this loophole in Shylock's bond. First, at the very beginning, I told you, like, maybe at the very beginning she was giving him a way out, yes, but of course he wouldn't accept it, yes, because she knew from the very beginning. It's not that she came up with this idea out of nowhere. It appears that she always knew about this loophole, okay? So the loophole is that in the contract there is no reference to blood. Yes, and not only that, she continues, if I'm not wrong. Yes, she continues because there is more to the loophole. Let us continue listening a little bit more.
Thyself shalt see the act. For as thou urgest justice, be assured thou shalt have justice more than thou desirest.
O learned judge, mark Jew, a learned judge.
I take this offer then. Pay the bond thrice and let the Christian go.
Here is the money.
Soft.
Okay, I love this part because it shows that it is Portia totally controlling the situation, and Shakespeare again going against all of Elizabethan conventions, because you know, women were little but nothing at that time. They were in this hierarchy of beings, this natural order of things, women were below men, but here all men are depending on Portia, and Portia is saving everyone's asses, if you allow me the expression. So I love how Shakespeare gives her protagonist positive role. Yes, because maybe this doesn't happen in other plays. She's given a very positive role, a very active role. Yes, she is the one speaking and controlling and posing, and she is the one manipulating everyone here, and for a good cause. Yes, she says, of course, one thing that happens here is that instead of being Shylock, the one flattering the judge, now Gratiano starts saying the words that Shylock was saying before. That's why he says, "Oh, upright judge, mark Jew, a learned judge." Yes, and then he repeats, "A learned judge, mark Jew, a learned judge." Yes, and when Shylock realizes, yes, Portia, this is line 310, Portia says, "Thyself shall see the act." You can see here in the contract, "For as thou urgest justice, be assured that you shall have justice just more than you desirest." So here what she's saying is, since you want justice, since you want what is just, let's have nothing more than justice. Yes. And if you go to lines, yes, "O learned judge, mark Jew, a learned judge." So Shylock, when he sees what the situation has turned into, he says, "Okay, so maybe I prefer the money." This is what he says. He says, "I take this offer then, pay the bond twice and let the Christian go." Okay, then he says, "If that's the case, give me the money and let the Christian go." And Bassanio very quickly says, "Here's the money." And Portia, still observing this situation of how much love Bassanio has for Antonio, says, "Soft, wait a second. I'm the one controlling the situation here." I love this. Yes. Let us continue listening a little bit more.
The Jew shall have all justice. Soft, no haste. He shall have nothing but the penalty.
Oh,
An upright judge, a learned judge.
Therefore, prepare thee to cut off the flesh. Shed thou no blood, nor cut thou less nor more, but just a pound of flesh. If thou takest more or less than a just pound, be it but so much as makes it light or heavy in the substance, or the division of the 20th part of one poor scruple, nay, if the scale do turn but in the estimation of a hair, thou diest, and all thy goods are confiscate.
Okay, up to here. So this is the second part of the loophole that Balthasar has found. Yes, he says, "Soft, not so fast. The Jew shall have all justice. Soft, no haste. He shall have nothing but the penalty." So if Shylock wants the law to be upheld, he will have nothing but the law. Yes, this is what she's saying. "Oh, Jew, an upright judge, a learned judge." Yes. And Portia says, therefore, prepare thee to cut off the flesh. So come on, go, cut his flesh now. Yes? Shed thou no blood, nor cut thou less no more, but just a pound of flesh. So remember, when you cut it, you cannot shed any blood. And you must cut exactly 1 pound of flesh, no less and no more than that. If you take more or less than just a pound, be it so much as much it's light or heavy in the substance, or the division of the 20th part of 1/4 scruple, nay, if the scale do turn but in the estimation of a hair, thou diest, and all thy goods are confiscated. So if you cut just for a very small unit of weight, more than 1 pound of flesh, then all your lands will be confiscated, all your goods are to be confiscated. And of course, everyone celebrates. A second Daniel, Jew, now infidel, I have you on the hip. Yes, now we have you. So notice how all the situation changes. Yes, let's continue listening a little bit more. So remember the loophole, the first part, when she first explains the loophole has to do with him not shedding any drop of blood. And the second part has to do with cutting exactly 1 pound of flesh, which is impossible. Yes, guessing and cutting exactly that amount. Okay, let's continue listening.
A second Daniel, a Daniel, Jew. Now, infidel, I have you on the hip.
Why doth the Jew pause? Take thy forfeiture.
Give me my principal and let me go.
I have it ready for thee. Here it is.
He hath refused it in the open court. He shall have merely justice and his bond.
A Daniel, still I say, a second Daniel. I thank thee, Jew, for teaching me that word.
Shall I not have barely my principal?
Thou shalt have nothing but the forfeiture, to be so taken at thy peril, Jew.
Why then the devil give him good of it. I'll stay no longer question.
Tarry, Jew. The law hath yet another hold on you. It is enacted in the laws of Venice, if it be proved against an alien, that by direct or indirect attempts he seek the life of any citizen, the part against the which he doth contrive shall seize 1/2 his goods. The other half comes to the privy coffer of the state, and the offender's life lies in the mercy of the Duke only, 'gainst all other voice. In which predicament, I say, thou standst. For it appears by manifest proceeding, that indirectly and directly too, thou hast contrived against the very life of the defendant, and thou hast incurred the danger formerly by me rehearsed. Down, therefore, and beg mercy of the Duke.
Okay, so very strong passage and very sad too. Yes, because here what Shylock says, so let me have my money, I will not cut his flesh. Yes, because he realizes that it is impossible to do what Balthasar is asking him. Yes, and Bassanio insists on giving him the money. Yes, this is why does the Jew pause? Take thy forfeiture. So why are you pausing? Why are you not cutting his flesh? Come on, take your bond, take what you wanted. Yes. So he says, give me my principal and let me go. Give me my money and let me go. I have it ready for thee. Here it is. So Bassanio offers the money again, and Portia asks him not to give it. He says, not to give it to him. He says, he has refused it in the open court. He has publicly refused the money already. He shall have merely justice and his bond. Of course, now she is the one pushing him to the edge. Yes, a Daniel, still I say, a second Daniel, I thank thee, Jew, for teaching me that word. Shall I not have verily my principal? You shall have nothing but the forfeiture. So you didn't want your money, you wanted your forfeiture. So go and take the pound of flesh, to be so taken at your peril, Jew. So Shylock says, well, then the devil give him good for it. So I hope the devil punishes him. I'll stay no longer for questions. So he gives up because he knows that Portia, that Balthasar has found a loophole and that there is no way that he will cut 1 pound of flesh without shedding any drop of blood. And when he's about to leave, Portia says, "Tarry, Jew, wait a little bit." And she says, "The law has yet another hold on you. It is enacted in the laws of Venice if it be proved against an alien that by directed or indirect attempts he seek the life of any citizen, the party against the which he thus contrive shall seize 1/2 of his goods, the other half comes to the private comfort of the state." So here what she is saying is that, well, she makes him wait, and she says, look, the law says something else, that if a foreigner, an alien, interesting word, if a foreigner attempts to hurt the life of a citizen from Venice, then he should be given half of the properties that he owns to the person that he tried to hurt, and the other half to the state of Venice. Yes, terrible, because and you will see that Shylock will lose everything that he owns. Yes, and well, we will see what happens here. He says, if you go to line 356, she says, "You have contrived against the very life of the defendant, and you hast incurred the danger formerly by the rehearsed. Down, therefore, and beg mercy of the Duke." So now it is Shylock in the position that he has to beg for mercy. Yes. Well, Antonio says that he even, well, then Portia also explains that he may also pay with his life, yes, that he should be killed, but Antonio doesn't want that, yes. Let me see, he will, because it's interesting, all the things that Shylock loses throughout the story. He has lost his servant, Lancelot Gobbo, remember? He has lost his daughter, his treasured ring that Jessica took from his house when she eloped with Lorenzo. Now he's going to lose all his possessions. Therefore, he will also lose his state of wealth. Yes, and then if you go to line 364, the Duke says, "You shall see the difference of our spirit. You shall see that we, Christians, are different. I pardon thee, thy life before you ask it. So I will forgive your life before you even beg for it. For half thy wealth, it is Antonio's. So half of your wealth now belongs to Antonio. The other half comes to the general state, which humbleness may drive unto a fine. I for the state, not for Antonio." "Nay," Shylock replies, "take my life and all." So here what he's saying is, I don't care, take my life, I don't want it. "Pardon not that, you take my house when you do take the prop that does sustain my house. You take my life when you take the means whereby I live." So he is being taken away everything, so he feels like it's useless, it's pointless to live. In this scene, all the Elizabethan audience would be applauding. Yes, they would be very cheerful and happy with this ending. Yes. And Portia asks Antonio, "What mercy can you render him, Antonio?" So now the opposite is happening. It is Antonio who has to have mercy of, or has to show mercy to Shylock. "A halter ratis, nothing else, for God's sake." So Graciano says that the only thing, this is a joke, the only thing that he deserves for free is the hangman's, the rope that you use to hang someone. Yes. So this is what Antonio decides to give them. He finally says, if the Duke and the court agree to sit to take half of his property, that's okay. But he will only ask for 2 more things. Well, let me read everything. So please, my lord and duke and all the court, to quit the fine for 1/2 of his goods, I am content. So he will let me have the other half in use to render it upon his death until the gentleman that lately stole his daughter. He's talking about Lorenzo. 2 things provided more, that for this favor he presently become a Christian. So he's asking him 2 things. The first one, that he presently becomes a Christian, that Shylock should turn into a Christian. And the second one, here in this court of all, he dies possessed unto his son Lorenzo and his daughter. So that the second thing that he wants is that when he dies, everything that he still owns, yes, because there is a part that they are going to leave for him to possess, that everything that he possesses when he dies should go to or should be inherited by Lorenzo and Jessica, okay? And of course, notice how this has shifted, because at the very beginning of this scene, Antonio was the victim and Shylock was the villain. And now it feels the other way around. It feels like Shylock has become the victim, because maybe they could have given him the money and everyone would have been happy, but they are taking everything away from him. His identity, his religion, his daughter, his house, his property, his everything, yes? So it's maybe a very harsh ending for Shylock, yes. In fact, he feels very bad. If you go to line 390, he says, I pray you give me leave to go from hence, I am not well, send the deed after me, I will sign it. So he asks for permission to leave because he feels very bad, yes. So now what happens here is a very important moment in the last lines that I'm going to explain it, yes. Let's see if we can listen to it. What we will see is that Bassanio wants to thank Balthasar for everything that he has done, yes. And what could possibly be the payment for that? Okay, let's listen to it. Let me find the right spot.
Beg that thou mayst have me and his daughter. He shall do this or to the gallows.
The font.
Exit Shylock.
Sir, I entreat you home with me to dinner.
I humbly do desire your grace of pardon. I must away this night toward Padua, and it is meet I presently set forth.
Yes.
I am sorry that your leisure, sir.
Your wisdom been this day acquitted of grief. Wisdom been this
serves you not. Antonio.
I'm going to try to reach line 404. Most worthy gentleman. Let me see if I can find it.
Gratify this gentleman, for in my mind you are much bound to him.
Exit Duke, Magnificos, and train.
Okay, here we go. 404.
Most worthy gentlemen, I and my friend have by your wisdom been this day acquitted of grievous penalties. In lieu whereof 3,000 ducats due unto the Jew, we freely cope your courteous pains withal.
And stand indebted over and above in love and service to you evermore.
He is well paid that is well satisfied, and I, delivering you, am satisfied, and therein do account myself well paid. My mind was never yet more mercenary. I pray you, know me when we meet again. I wish you well, and so I take my leave.
Dear sir, of force I must attempt you further. Take some remembrance of us as a tribute, not as a fee. Grant me 2 things, I pray you, not to deny me, and to pardon me.
You press me far, and therefore I will yield.
To Antonio.
Give me your gloves, I'll wear them for your sake.
To Bassanio.
and for your love I'll take this ring from you. Do not draw back your hand. I'll take no more, and you in love shall not deny me this.
Okay, so here what Portia says, Bassanio tells him, Bassanio and Antonio thank Balthasar. Yes, they say, my worthy gentleman, I and my friend have by your wisdom been this day acquitted. We have been made free of grievous penalties in lieu whereof 3,000 ducats due unto the Jew, we freely cope your courteous pains withal, and stand indebted over and above in love and service to you evermore. So there is no money that can actually compensate what Portia has done for them. Yes, but they are showing their that they are thankful. Yes, he is well paid, that is well satisfied. So being satisfied for doing your job well is the best payment that you can have. Yes, but Bassanio insists, and he says, dear sir, there is something that I can give to you for payment for everything that you have done to us. Please, I beg you, just ask me for anything that I would give it to you. And Portia, yes, this is line 421, says, you press me far and therefore I will yield. So, okay, since you insist, let's see. Give me your gloves, she says this to Antonio. Give me your gloves, I will wear them for your sake. And for your love, she looks at Bassanio, I will take this ring from you. And as soon as she does that, Bassanio does this. Yes, he pushes his hand away. Do not draw back your hand, I'll take no more, and you in love shall not deny me this. So she says, don't draw back your hand, I will only take this, don't worry. But remember that this ring is very important to Bassanio. Well, it should be at least. Why? Because Portia gave it to him as a symbol of their love, and he promised that he would never, ever in his life be separated from this ring. Yes, unless if that would happen, it would mean the ruin of their love. Yes. Let's continue listening.
This ring, good sir, alas, it is a trifle. I will not shame myself to give you this.
I will have nothing else but only this, and now methinks I have a mind to it.
There's more depends on this than on the value. The dearest ring in Venice will I give you, and find it out by proclamation. Only for this, I pray you pardon me.
I see, sir, you are liberal in offers. You taught me first to beg, and now methinks you teach me how a beggar should be answered.
Okay, so of course Bassanio tries to stop him from taking the ring. Yes, she says that it's a small decorative object, that she shouldn't ask for such a small price. Yes, and notice the use of dramatic irony again. Yes, but Portia insists. She says, I will have nothing else but this. And now methinks I have a mind to it. And now that you don't want to give it to me, I really want it. Yes. Well, he insists that he could give to her something more valuable, but Portia, if you go to line 435, says, you taught me first to beg, and now methinks you teach me how a beggar should be answered. Yeah, so first you ask me to beg you for anything in the world, and now it seems that you don't want to give anything to me. Yes. Well, Bassanio explains to her. She says, good sir, this ring was given by my wife, and when she put it on, she made me vow that I should neither sell, nor give, nor lose it. That excuse serves many men to save their gifts. Of course, Portia is manipulating him to see whether he would keep his promise or not. Yes, so you're using this as an excuse. Yes, I'm sure that your wife would understand the reason why you would give your ring. And Bassanio intervenes and says, my lord Bassanio, let him have the ring. Let his deservings and my love withal be valued against your wife's commandment. Yes. And it's interesting here because up to now, Antonio was very firm, very convinced of what he had asked, of the reasons why he wouldn't give his ring. But now that Antonio has said this, he would change his mind. Yes, and the ring would stop being a symbol of Portia and Bassanio's love to become a symbol of Bassanio and Antonia's love. Yes. So Bassanio says, "Go, Gratiano, run and overtake him. Give him the ring and bring him, if thou canst, unto Antonia's house, and away make haste." So he takes off the ring, gives it to Gratiano, and Gratiano gives it to Balthasar, who was almost leaving, and they go away to Belmont. So he finally gives away the ring, and we don't get to see Portia's face when this happens, but she must be really mad. Yes. Act 4, Scene 2. The same situation with the ring happens. Well, actually, Gratiano gives the ring to Portia. Yes. And Nerissa takes advantage of this situation. Yes. And the same happens with her own ring, because remember that Gratiano and Nerissa also had a ring, and she made him promise not to sell or to get separated from that ring ever in their lives, because it was a symbol of their love, and he gives the ring to them. Yes, just like that. Yes, so we will see what happens in Act 5, Scene 1, when they return to Belmont to their wives. Okay, so I hope this was clear, and if not, you know that you can always ask me when we see each other in person.